The other thing, and I can't stress this enough, don't try and put all the body filler on at once. Get a manageable amount on your spreader when you apply your first coat. Put it on the panel and then spread it out. In my experience, multiple layers of body filler rather than one thick coat is going to be a much better repair, and it's going to save you a lot of frustration. The next step is to let this dry. It usually takes about 10-15 minutes, and then we'll block sand this out with 80 grit sandpaper. Now you're going to use a block that's about the size of the repair or a little bit larger. You're going to hold your block flat and block it in an X pattern. Off camera, we went ahead and blocked this body filler out with some 80 grit sandpaper on a medium-sized block. Now you want to hold your block flat when you're blocking your panel. You want to move with the contours of this fender. So if you have a roll or a contour in your fender, block within that, okay? Holding your block flat at all times. You want to block it in a crosshatch or X pattern in all different directions. Now, if you start to break through into bare metal, you want to stop what you're doing because you either have a high spot or you need to add some more filler. A good way to determine whether you have a high area or a low area or a combination of both is to hold your hand flat against the panel and move quickly across the repair area. And you should be able to feel where there's a high or a low area. Now, this takes a little bit of practice, but if you can develop a feel for it, it's really going to help you out in the long run. Another common mistake when you're block sanding your body filler is removing too much filler. So you're using your filler to fill those low areas and create a level transition into the rest of the panel. By blocking out too much filler, you can expose those high areas, and that's going to just be a vicious cycle where you're blocking out too much filler, you're applying more filler, and then blocking out too much again. So just be aware of that when you're repairing your vehicle. So in this sanding process, the sandpaper is important. So we started by initially blocking this with 80 grit. That's a coarse sandpaper. Now we're moving to 180, blocking the same area with 180 grit sandpaper, and that's going to refine those 80 grit scratches to a finer scratch. Then we'll move on to blocking it with 320 to refine those scratches even more before we primer. If deep scratches remain and you leave those scratches in your work, then when you go ahead and prime it, that primer is going to shrink into those scratches over time, and it could expose deep scratches in the repair area. So you want to avoid that by refining those scratches. We now have this all blocked out with 180 grit sandpaper, so we're going to blow it off, wipe it down, and now we're going to apply what's called a polyester glazing putty, and it's basically a body filler that's very smooth. It's lightweight, meaning it's easy to sand. It's made to fill any imperfections, any deep scratches or waves in your panel. So I like to use this as an insurance policy. I'll coat the entire repair area, and then we'll go ahead and block it with 180 grit sandpaper. The specific product I use is USC icing, and if you guys are interested in any of the tools or products I use, I always leave the links down in the description of the video. I'll apply this over the entire repair area, and this product is made to go over a 180 grit scratch. So we finished our sanding with 180, and now we can apply this icing over it. Now that we have our icing applied, we're going to go ahead and let this cure. It'll take about 10 minutes. And then what I'll do is I'll use a little guide coat. This is a charcoal-based powder that shows you any high or low areas when you're blocking out your repair area. There's also an aerosol version of this available, and also in a pinch you could also use a flat black aerosol paint. I would stay away from the gloss, and that's not quite as good. It will gum up your paper a little bit, but you could get by using a flat black paint.